here is a coalition of forces who could come together because they believed they could walk 95 to 99% of the road together to achieve an essential thing: the resurrection of Ireland, the creation of self-determination of a sovereign democracy in this country, which was declared here, read by Pádraig Mac Piarais, on the very steps we stand behind, rather the very platform we stand behind. And in that, some very salient, important points were made, which remain as relevant to us now as they were then. But consider this for one moment. When they mustered outside Liberty Hall, they were regarded as subjects of a foreign nation. There was no national government in Dublin, had not been since the 1st of January 1801. And even then it was a colonial shop based very fittingly in the premises occupied by the Bank of Ireland around the corner. Now, by the time they got to hear the immortal words of the proclamation, they were citizens of an Irish Republic, unrecognised but nonetheless in being. And this is not the theoretical, philosophical musings of the virtual republic which revisionists love to sneer at the Fenians. This was the actual concrete embodiment of the real spirit of our nation. Who had elected the Westminster government, so-called? A minority of men in our population, not most men, and no women whatsoever. And they dared to say they represented legitimate lawful authority in our country. It was, of course, outrageous, egregious, and no one requires a mandate to wage war against a tyranny of that nature. However, the last stand, after 6 days of machine gunning, blasting and fire, was a very skillful, dangerous withdrawal of the GPO garrison, a mixed force, a composite force of Republicans who were calling themselves the IRA in 1916, back to the Moore Street Redoubt, where again, in the face of insurmountable odds and the prospect of achieving no more in the short term for additional losses to civilians and indeed their own personnel, it was decided reluctantly that the stand had been made, that the honour of Ireland had been restored and the integrity of the nation had been asserted. And even then, it took an excess of 24 hours to convince all the other battalion headquarters that it was necessary to temporarily stand down and wait for the coming fight. That, of course, was the War of Independence. We do not as yet have a Republic Day on the 24th of April. We do not as yet have an Independence Day on the 21st of January, but we can, we will, and we should in due course. But what we do have is the remnants of the Moore Street headquarters. We would all hold ourselves cheap, I would imagine, if we didn't do what we can to legitimate courses of action such as this, to insist that we do not accept that they should be swept away. As Dermot has said and others earlier, this is our birthright. Can we stand by and allow our descendants to be deprived of that? Of course not. Now there's a silver lining for those who wish to re-engage and repurpose that sector of our city and our heritage in a professional and a courteous and an appropriate manner. It took the actions of people like you and me in the 1960s to save Kilmaine in prison. It was going to be demolished. It was allowed to fall into rack and ruin quite deliberately. It was unilateral, careful action. We preserved that, and it is now one of the greatest draws Dublin City has to offer. Some of the plans for the GPO, in the face of public outcry, have at least been halted. And indeed, the total, utter destruction of Moore Street Terrace has been halted by the activism of the Save Moore Street campaign and their allies. So all is not lost, but please do not lose heart. It's not over till it's over. There's a job of work to be done, but at least now, well, let's keep the bastards honest. Thank you.
Now, folks, I'd like to introduce you to Jessica Hughes. Jessica was a stalwart in the occupation of Moore Street and a brilliant activist, and she's going to read out a statement on behalf of the traders from Moore Street. So give her a big welcome, folks.
First of all, let me just say that the traders during the occupation, they were very supportive of everyone inside, and without that we wouldn't have been able to continue the occupation, and they continue to support the ongoing campaign. And so I'll just read out their short statement. We welcome the development of the campaign to save Moore Street from demolition. Despite the plans currently under construction, we the people whose lives depend upon trading on the street have been left in the dark. We and our ancestors have been on the street for close to 200 years, and we